Yes. So for the like first line const, I can say that that is the variable,
Very good.
and and message is the name of the variable,
Uh-huh.
and we are trying to print hello world, which is in single quotes.
Let me give you a little more precision here. So that's very good. So message is what we have done is we have declared a new space in memory and said that it's called message. So we've reserved a space in memory and assigned the string hello world to it. So we've declared a space in memory and reserved a space in memory and assigned the string hello world to it. And as you notice, it is a const, which means that it cannot be changed in the sense that, yeah, it can't be changed. So, now the space is message, the value that is associated with message, the data that is associated with message cannot be changed. Okay, so sounds good. Continue.
I'm not sure about the second line,
No problem.
but like mostly I can relate it with the HTML because it is saying inner HTML equals to like some message, and so like for the last line I know it is used for bug fixing, console.log and message.
Exactly. So let me comment on both of those. So console.log, here we have the console. So here we have a console right here. This is, if you right-hand click in your web browser, oh, I guess not in this web browser right now, but if I right-hand click in my web browser and click inspect somewhere, the console is going to open up. This here is the console. And in essentially, and here this is the elements, this is the console. I guess this is the inspector, and this is the console. So in this console runs JavaScript. And so if I'm a web developer and I am developing, for example, in the front end, there are also, it's the equivalent of print in Python, where you can just, it prints out the data. In JavaScript, it will print right here if I'm doing front end development, if I'm doing development in a browser, or it will just print to that, to whatever the standard output is. If I'm doing something like that's the equivalent of like, Python. Like if I'm running a script in a terminal, then it's going to print to the terminal, for example. So that's what the console is. So it just prints that out, and this is information just like you said for the developer, 100%. Very good. So what we see in this document here, or what we see on this web page here, is three things. We see an index.html, which corresponds to this web view here. And in HTML, do you have any HTML experience?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what you will notice here in this index.html is that we have it's tied to script.js, which is the JavaScript file we had here. And it's also tied, and this is why, so JavaScript is the only language you can use in the front end. It's the only language you can use in the browser. And and it's also this H1 here has an ID of header. So if we come over to the script that we see here, document.querySelector header, basically what we're doing, you want to take a guess?
Like header means H1 header means like
So header,
it
if you
will show you yeah.
no worries, no worries. I was just seeing if, but no. So what this will be is this hashtag. Oops, shoot. This hashtag here in HTML, class names are identified with period and followed by the class name. Like if you're using CSS, cascading styling sheets, you will have class names, which if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it, are identified with periods, and IDs are identified with with hashtags. And so here we have this H1, this header, which is ID, its ID is header. And so here we're saying, look in the HTML document, that's what this document means, HTML document, and select the thing that is called header, and then this hashtag implies with respect to the ID. So basically what we're doing, you see what I'm saying? So what we're doing essentially is using this JavaScript here, this JavaScript file, is linking to this H1 on line 9 because it has an ID of header.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Then what we're doing is we are using this just like a variable. So this period here, if you have an object, I believe you can do this in Python as well. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. I haven't used Python. I used to love Python, but I get confused with JavaScript now because I am primarily coding in JavaScript. The this period is at worst case scenario. It's like the equivalent of these in Python, where if I have a dictionary, I can say dictionary sub key name. This is the key name. This inner HTML is the key name, and this is the dictionary.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So basically, in JavaScript, in Python, you call them dictionaries. In JavaScript, they're objects, and they're essentially the same thing. They're they're key value pairs. So they'll
Yes.
look something
So
like
like
this: key name.
message would be a value, right?
Right, message would be
No,
the
not at
value,
all.
exactly right. So in this case,
Okay.
we have an object. Oops, I've done that twice now. How this comes back to the JavaScript. In the JavaScript, ooh, it is sunny here, which is wonderful, but my eyes are slightly closed, but that's okay. The in the JavaScript, this will link to an object, which is just going to be a series of properties. And these properties, one of the properties is going to be inner HTML, and the message is actually originally, as we can see here, the inner HTML is what's in here, this information in here. So this is actually the inner HTML right here. And I'm going to rerun this. Nothing's going to change. You have any idea why nothing changed, even though I wrote inner HTML in here?
Because like
No worries. This
it is just the
is not
kind
easy.
of message, right?
So the reason is, oh wait, I think you just said it. Tell me one more time.
It was basically just a message between the header, I guess. So I'm not completely sure.
No, that's okay. That sounds good. So I'm going to comment out this line, and now it says inner HTML. Okay, so our HTML shows, now we have this H1, which corresponds to this element on our web page. If you haven't ever seen any HTML, check out my HTML classes. I assume very basic HTML here, or hopefully you can figure it out even if you haven't seen it before. But this H1, this H1 corresponds to this element on the web page, okay? And right now I've labeled it as inner HTML. We then have also said apply this JavaScript page to our web page. And what this JavaScript page does is on line 5, it rewrites the inner HTML from whatever it was previously. So in this case, now it was the actual value of inner HTML was a string called inner HTML. And then we have rewritten that to be the value of message here. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. So like hello world.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And if I change it up here, it will rewrite it here. So this is kind of, you're already seeing, I kind of jumped you I jumped you directly from JavaScript into this kind of JavaScript HTML interaction. But I do think that that's kind of why most people are like, I want to learn JavaScript so that I can do something with web development. And so it doesn't seem totally inappropriate to kind of link you there. But of course, if we weren't using JavaScript, I'm going to show this one more time. If we weren't using JavaScript, our raw HTML, alternatively, I could actually cross out this script. That's probably a better alternative. So I put this back here. So the script is not in play. So this here is an HTML comment. A comment means this line of code is not run at all. It's done mostly so I can write comments to myself in the file and know as a developer, okay, this is what this does. Alternatively, sometimes I cheat as a developer and I can comment it in and out. And so right now, what we have delinked, we have taken out, we have commented out, and basically deactivated the line of HTML that said link to this JavaScript file. So this is just pure HTML right now. And I can say hello to my students, okay? And that's what H1 is, like the value of this H1 is right here, if you see what I'm saying. This just renders, I have a static HTML page, and so it renders that which I write into the HTML page. When I add in the JavaScript file, of course it renders what I have on the HTML page, but why does this change? Why does the value here change to hello world? It changes because we now said run this JavaScript file, and in this JavaScript file on line 1, we declare a variable that's a string whose value is hello world, and then on line 5 we say link into the h1 element, the element whose ID is header, this element's ID is header, as we can see, and replace its inner HTML with the value of message, which we have said is hello world. Is that clear?
Okay. So like yes. So like basically it is calling the first line, right? Like const message, because we are putting the value message over here. So it will be that fifth line will be called on the first line, like something. Or
Tell me again. I didn't understand the question.
no. So it is like calling the function. Fifth line is calling the function of first one, something.
So I understand the question now. So let me kind of clarify that. So let me actually say so message line 1 is not a function. So line 1 is just saving hello message, declaring a variable. Let me re-say that. So line 1 is declaring a variable called message and assigning the value, the text, aka string, the string hello world to it. In JavaScript, we call them strings. In Python, we also call them strings, but I don't know if they're called strings in all languages. So message is a variable, and a variable basically means we can use it multiple times, and it's just associated with this text. I could also say const. I could also say const my favorite number, and we'll say it's 24 because 24 is my favorite number. And I could also set the inner HTML to be 24 instead of message. And so what this would then do is take the value. So how this works is you actually store computer memory gets associated, like in computer memory, it declares a space, it reserves a space, and calls it my favorite number, and associates that with the number 24, or it declares a space in memory called message, and associates that with the value hello world. And then here, this JavaScript element, this HTML element has certain properties. It's just like a dictionary in Python, or if you haven't seen, like if you're not, whatever, if that's not your specialty, then it's basically key value pairs. So you have a key name and a value name, key name and a value name, and basically the browser, so Firefox, Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Safari, whatever you're using to render web pages, the browser knows that this inner HTML property associated with the HTML element corresponds to what is between the tags here, if you see what I'm saying. And so when we update it, we're not calling a function. All we're doing is updating a variable. So let me give you a different example. I'm sorry, I actually thought of a better way to explain this now. So let's say it's my favorite student, and it's me. And I'm so sorry. You got to remind me of your name really quick.
I'm Dirty.
Dirty. Okay, got it. So it was my favorite student, but then I realized later, my favorite student is actually no longer Joe, because I'm Joe, and it's actually Dirty. Am I spelling that right?
You're fine. It's okay.
Okay, so no. That sounds like a no. How do I spell it correctly?
DHA.
RTI? Is this good now?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. So, and then I will have my inner HTML now render my favorite student is plus the variable associated with my favorite student. Okay, so what we've got here now what we've done on line 3, what we've done is we've declared a space in memory and called it my favorite student, or we've reserved a space in memory and called it my favorite student and associated the string Joe, string meaning text, the string Joe with my favorite student. Then on line 4, what we've done is we have said, hey computer, go to that space in memory that you've associated with my favorite student, the variable name my favorite student, and replace the text Joe with dirty. So that's what we've done here on line 4. So now we've declared this space in memory called Joe, or excuse me, I take that back. We've declared this space called my favorite student in memory, and we assigned an initial value of Joe to it. Then we overwrote the value associated with that space in memory and called it dirty on line 4.
Okay.
In the exact same way, this is actually, so that's what this single equal sign means. It means take this information on the right-hand side and assign it to this place in memory on the left. That's what that means. So here, this one's more complicated looking, and I kind of, I throw you a little bit in the deep end, but it's just so you can you see the syntax and watch it update kind of real time in HTML right away. All we're doing is we're getting the element associated with the header in here, and then we're finding the property inner HTML associated with that key value pair. So there's a property called inner HTML that is tied to what you see on the screen, and we have updated that. We have said, just like on line 4, we said delete Joe from memory and replace it with dirty. Here we've said delete the original inner HTML and replace it with this information on the right hand side, which is my favorite student is : space, and then what my favorite student is, which is dirty.
So mostly like it is doing the last on the 4th line, whichever name you wrote, it will be displayed in the web page, and it will not take the line 3rd, I guess, right? The last declared variable would be displayed in the browser. Like, for example, my favorite student is and colon.
Right. So so inner HTML is the inner HTML of this h1 tag. This h1 tag is it has this ID, so it replaces this text, or the original text. The original value of inner HTML was hello to my students, because this is the inner HTML between the two tags, the h1 tag here and the h1 tag here, and then we replace that with the value on the right side of the assignment operator, the equal sign. It's called the assignment operator because we're assigning that value. We're assigning the right-hand value to the left-hand value. So it evaluates to what the right-hand side evaluates to is my favorite student is plus whatever my favorite student is, which is dirty. So that's what we're doing here. But let's focus on this here, for example. So we don't have to actually super worry about this. I thought this syntax would be interesting and helpful right off the bat, but if it's confusing, then what we can also do equivalently is kind of replace with this message we're console.logging with why is it showing hello world right now in the console.log? Because on line 1, we've defined message to be hello world. And then on line 10, we're console.logging that message. If I replace that text with my favorite student is, and then whatever my favorite student currently is, which is dirty when it reaches line 10, because it starts as Joe, code runs top to bottom, it starts as Joe, is replaced by dirty, and then by the time at the time it evaluates on line 10, the current value of my favorite student in memory is dirty, and that's why it shows dirty here, because it started as Joe, but it gets replaced by dirty already on line 4, and then by the time we hit line 10, it's now dirty. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so now I'm going to do a couple of things. So the first thing I want to show you is we've now taken a look here. We've seen my favorite number is 24. You can do all sorts of stuff with JavaScript. So I'm going to add some extra console.logs. I mean, first thing I'm just going to show you, this is something that you probably already intuitively know, but let's just take a look. And let's say we can obviously sum numbers. So let's just do 24 plus 1. console.log, in our console.log, in our console right here, we've got 25, which is the result of 24 plus 1. But I can also say my favorite number is, or excuse me, console.log, my favorite number, which is 24 plus 1. And that will also result in 25 in the console. So why is that helpful? I think you already know that, but tell me why that's helpful. Like, why is it helpful that what we can do with variables?
So it is just like doing the addition for now.
In this case, it's not super helpful, but I'm just saying, what is the value of a variable in general?
I'm not like quite sure.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. So we can change things with time. So for example, let me think of an example here. So if I had a web page, let's even do this really quick. Let's add a button here. Let's add a button whose ID is, we'll just call it counter. And on the other side, we will say it's going to say click me. Okay. So we have a button here. Now it says click me, click me, click me. Nothing happens, however. In my JavaScript, I can say, I actually don't even know how to do the onclick function. I got to actually ask ChatGPT because I always do onclick with React. So in vanilla JavaScript, I actually don't know right now. ChatGPT, how do I add an event listener to a button in JavaScript? Counter. Okay. So here we go. We're going to copy and paste this out of here. Perfect. Okay, this is what I was looking for. I couldn't remember how to do it. So we have we have what's called an event listener here. And when the button is clicked, watch what happens. When we click the button, it's listening for the event click, and it's going to when the button is clicked, then we run this callback function. What a callback function essentially means is that it's a function that, what a callback function really means is it's a function that passes an argument to another function. That's probably too advanced and it doesn't really matter. But basically, when this button is clicked, because we've added an event listener for clicked, and we've tied it to the element in the document whose ID is counter, which was, when we go to the button, we made its ID counter. When we click this button, this function is going to get called, and basically that means the stuff between the squiggly brackets is going to get run. So console.log button click is going to run. So if I click here, we now see in our console button clicked, button clicked, button clicked. Okay, is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, so now the question is, why is it that variables are helpful? So let's change this up to be, instead of say my favorite student is, let's say the button has been clicked, and then we'll say it says my favorite student. We'll change that in just 1 second. Times. I'm hoping you're coding live with me, by the way. That's why I shared this link. If you're not coding live with me, go to playcode.io/JavaScript and code live with me on your own. You know, like you should be doing this in parallel, because that's the best way to do it, is like to practice while, like you can be watching me on one half the screen or on your other monitor and doing it yourself on the other,
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Great. So now it says the button has been clicked dirty times, and that's because we have my favorite student here. Let's replace that with a variable called button click count. And right now, nobody has ever clicked the button, so its initial value is 0. And so we'll say the button has been clicked, button click count times. So the button has been clicked 0 times. So that's clearer, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now if instead of saying button clicked, we console.log button click, we say button click count, button click count equals the old value of button click count plus 1. That means every single time the button has been clicked, it will increase the value of button click count by 1. Is this line of code clear? Line 11.
Not 100%, a little bit.
Okay, then let's talk through it. I appreciate your saying that. Thank you for your honesty. So, button click count is a variable. We declare a space in memory called button click count, and we set it to an initial value of 0. The reason
Yes.
this one says let versus this one says const is because this means I have the intention of changing the variable associated with this. This means I have no intention of changing the variable associated with this. I want to fix it. I don't want to give anybody the opportunity to ever change this again. I know I'm going to need this text hello world, so I'm going to use it, but it's a constant because I don't need to change it in the future. Button click count, however, every time you click the button, we want that number to increase, and so that's why it's a let. A let basically means a variable that a variable whose value we intend to change versus a constant, a variable whose value we disallow from changing. We say this like my favorite number is 24. You do not have the right to change my favorite number. But if you do click the button, then you have the right to change the number of times the button has been clicked. If you see what I'm saying.
Yeah. Can I interrupt here? So
Please.
like here, line 5th, it says like let button click count equals to 0, right? And on 11th line, button click count equals to button click count plus 1. So initially we have assigned value 0 on the 5th line.
Right.
So what I see in my mind is whenever we run this code, we will get the output 1 because like button click count is 0. And when it runs line 11th, it would be 0 plus 1. So our final value would be 1.
So that is correct. So the first time I click the button, the line 11, this function is never called until until the button is clicked. So the web page starts, I click the button. Oh, it's not updating. Why is that not updating? Does it start from the top? Okay, I'm surprised by that. Hold on just 1 second. Oh, add event listener. The button has been clicked, button click count. So it starts at the top. I see. And then the other thing we need to do here is, okay, sorry. I see, sorry. The other thing we need to do here is update this inner HTML. So now this should work. Yep, there we go. Sorry about that. So I missed something here. So when the function, so the first time the function is called, it's exactly like you said. That button click count will start at 0, and then it increases to 1 the first time the function's called, and then we save that new value. We overwrite the value in memory from 0 to 1, and so now button click count is 1. And then what we're doing here is, again, updating this line of updating the inner HTML. So the inner HTML of the document changes from the header. We linked to the header, which was again this text, and said change its value to the button has been clicked, and then whatever the new value of button click count is, which we update on line 11, and then times. Now, why? I see your point entirely. Why does it go higher than 1? Because you're saying it seems like once we've reached down here, how can we start higher on the page of code? If code runs top to bottom, which it does, as you correctly identified, how can it be that we run this line 11 again without running line 5 again?
I cannot see the screen just now. So when I refresh the page, I think I'm out of the meeting.
Okay. Oops.
So shall I? Yeah. Now I can know.
No. I stopped sharing it. Sorry. How about now?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. So what you had said is, why is it how can I run line 11 multiple times without, because code runs top to bottom. And when you run a file, you run the whole file. This is a very, very good question, Dirt T. I have to tell you, this is a very, very good question. So how can it be that when code runs top to bottom, I'm able to run line 11 multiple times without line 5 getting run again? so basically, every time I restart the web page, it does automatically reset to 0, right? Because what we're doing on line 5 is setting button click count to 0. However, the browser has special properties, and this is relevant in JavaScript all the time, that allows you, so you associate the event listener, like we've associated this click function, or this, excuse me, we've associated this function with the click event on this button, okay? And what the browser allows us to do is this script is actually only ever run once ever. This script is run once ever. I guess we could add something at the end of the script that says run the script again. Probably. I actually don't think we could. I'm not sure. I've never seen that. But what we can do is say when we associate this function with an event listener here, then we have basically given this function a kind of a unique identity and ability to run every single time that this event listener fires, completely independently of this script in a certain sense. Like now it is associated, this function is associated with this event, the event of this button click, and it runs every time this button is clicked, if you see what I'm saying. And that doesn't mean the script has to start from the top. It's just now this function, that's the magic of callback functions, that's the magic of event listeners and asynchronous in JavaScript, is that you can do, you have this callback function, which is going to get called every single time this click event is called, and it doesn't start the script again at the top of the script. Do you see that? Do you see the point I'm making?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions so far?
Not for now.
Okay.
I think I'm not writing the code side by side, so it's better when I write the code on my own. I'll better understand.
Absolutely.
Yes, but right now I'm just understanding the whole concept.
Absolutely. No, this sounds good. This sounds really good.